Fuck. I can't fucking hear it. Motherfucker.
We haven't started yet. So welcome everyone. This is Henry DeVries. And welcome to How to Be an Expert in 30 Days. And I was just thinking about John. John came to me a couple of months ago during the pandemic and needed to know what to do with his business. And I showed him in 30 days we could declare the area he wanted to be an expert in, get him started on writing a book, have him finish 2 LinkedIn, have a Zoominar, invite people on LinkedIn, on Zoominar on the topic about his upcoming book. And John was able to do that and even able to design a cover of the book to share with people, all in 30 days. So that's some of the power of what we're talking about. They're the same steps that we go through to promote ourselves, to market ourselves with a book and a speech. It's just pivoting during the pandemic. How do we shift this? So that's what we're talking about here today. So really glad that you're here. My name's Henry DeVries. I run a business called Indie Books International. And we work with independent consultants who want to attract high-paying clients by marketing with a book and a speech. We've done that for 6 years. I've been a ghostwriter for 20 years. A ghostwriter is someone who helps somebody write a book. They're invisible in the process. I usually get thanked as an editor. I'm a writer. I write professionally for Forbes.com. I write a column a week for Forbes, and I've been doing that for several years on business development. So as a professional speaker, I speak on how to persuade with a story. I have a book called Persuade with a Story, and I speak in the $5,000 to $10,000 range on that topic. In the last decade, I have helped 300 people as a ghostwriter, coach, editor, publisher for nonfiction business books, including one I co-authored with Tom Searcy called How to Close a Deal Like Warren Buffett, which is now in Chinese. So that's my background with books and speaking. And as a result of working with me and following what I recommend in my dozen books on marketing, people get more impact and influence. And on a personal note, I'm a baseball nut. I have visited 43 Major League Baseball parks, and I've got 3 to go before I touch them all, and that's one of my goals. So welcome here. I want to share something on a screen. I'll do a share here. And bring that up for everybody. This is really what we're talking about, and I'm happy to take questions today. Just ask questions in the chat box. I want this to be your time on this subject. Anything on business development for consultants, how to be a speaker, how to be an author, how to get publicity to attract high-paying clients. That's what it's about. I define a high-paying client as somebody who will pay 4 and 5 figures to you, maybe through the life of an engagement. One of my biggest engagements started with a $750 project, wound up going into 6 figures. So some of the things is they're not writing the big check to begin with. We teach over 1,000 strategies. That's a strategy where you're starting with something small. You're starting with something small and you're building onto it. So On the screen, I have what we're talking about here today. In 30 days to be an expert, I would think you'd write a blueprint for an upcoming book. So a blueprint for an upcoming book is the working title, the working subtitle, what the table of contents is. You're telling people why they should care about your expertise, how to do it, and then what's next. Once they learn how to do it, how do they sustain it? How do they build a culture? It's the basic formula for how adults process information. We want to know why we should pay attention to this. Then we want the how in general. And then we want the what's next. Well, what would come after we'd start that system or process? And that's what you're communicating in your books, in your training, in your LinkedIn articles, in your small scale seminars. We'll be talking about that today. One thing you can do before you write the book is produce a cover for the book. This can be done for under $100 with a good graphic artist. It might not be the final cover that you use, but it makes it real to people. When you're sharing it as a PDF, you're talking about your upcoming book. Now, I'm not talking about a scam here. You have to really be committed to, I'm going to write this book. But Rome wasn't built in a day. As one of my mentors, David Maister, said, Rome wasn't built in a day, but make no mistake about it, we're building Rome. So books aren't written in a day. I know these are crazy things where come to this conference and you'll write a book and we'll make it a bestseller that day. Anything too good to be true probably is. That's crazy talk. A book takes time, but I have found it's easier to write a book in 3 months than 6 months to a year because of the focused attention and the momentum. First, it's committing to it. You get to interview people for your upcoming book. That's a magic phrase. I'm looking for smart people to interview in this area. I've got a book coming out next year called Rainmaker Confidential. I'm interviewing rainmakers, the people in charge of big professional service firms, and what they're doing during the pandemic, and what they're cutting out, and what they're doing more of, and what's their go-to strategy. And I'm putting that in my Forbes.com columns, I'm putting it into the book. If I didn't have a Forbes column, I would put them into my LinkedIn articles. You can get published. There's a spectrum of publishing. You can build up toward your book. There's some business development to interviewing your target prospects. It builds relationships with people. You learn about them, they learn about you. It's just more natural that they would be the people who might want to do business with you. One person I studied, one rainmaker, told me about interviewing 100 prospects for his book. Valuable information. Shared the research in his book. 2 of those 100 hired him for high 5-figure assignments. So just from right there was the ROI from the book. You didn't have to sell 1 copy of the book. It was the process that built the relationships that got him the work. These can also be for articles or even LinkedIn posts. However, it sounds a lot more impressive. You sound a lot more impressive if you're writing a book or you're writing your next book. That's a certain thought leader positioning. And thought leaders are people who share their knowledge through typing and talking. In other words, they write and they speak. They share this information. And the more people they help in general, the more people find them for the specifics. And you get hired for the specifics of helping people. Write 2 chapters of a book. Target a 2,000-word chapter. It doesn't have to be chapter 1 or the last chapter. It can be some of the middle chapters about how-tos, about how you solve problems. It's going to make you better. This is what all my authors tell me. I got better in the process. I had to organize my thoughts, I had to do some research, and I had to present it to other people. And that just gave me more confidence, they tell me, when I'm talking to clients, because the process of writing the book. They said, Henry, you should sell people on that. And I said, yeah, I don't think people believe me. They know what a book can be. A book can be credibility. A book can be lead generation. A book can be legacy. A book can be a helpful tool when you're working with clients where you can say, well, I wrote all that down in chapter 7. I do another thing with my clients is I'm writing monographs on everything that we're doing. It'll probably be in a book one day. Some came from my book. There are monographs on every aspect of writing a book and publicizing a book, getting testimonials, all these aspects. So monograph, I chose the word from reading Sherlock Holmes, the Sherlock Holmes mystery book. In some Sherlock Holmes stories, he tells Dr. Watson, oh, I wrote a monograph on the different types of tobacco in the United Kingdom. Ooh, one day we'll write monographs, and so I have. Just another word for term paper or white paper. They're not published, and they're things to give people to inform them. I'm asking you to write book chapters that you're going to excerpt or publish in whole on some platform. LinkedIn is easy. LinkedIn can do it easily. You should overhaul your LinkedIn page. You should talk about your area of expertise, your upcoming book, merchandise the upcoming book, merchandise the speaking that you're doing on this subject. Remember, an expert. An expert is someone who writes and speaks. They type and they talk about their area of expertise. So show that on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is the world's biggest business-to-business database. It was created for us. It costs nothing or very little to access a higher level feature. I'm going to have Kevin DeVries share some thoughts on LinkedIn in a moment. LinkedIn has been a game changer for us in the last 6 years. We've generated millions of dollars of income thanks to LinkedIn and the connections we made. We have a different way of doing it, and we'll share details with that. So that gets to Zoominar. You host a Zoominar. You're on what we call a Zoominar. It's a small-scale seminar on Zoom. And if you have other platforms like GoToMeeting or WebEx, that works too. Zoom has been so popular. People ask me, how's your business doing during the pandemic? I said, well, we're doing fine. We're no toilet paper or Zoom. They've done very well in the pandemic. I also hear alcohol consumption is up 250% during the pandemic, so that might be doing well too. So I hope you're doing well. One way to do well is we need to pivot, and for years I've advocated the number one best thing you can do in small-scale seminars. And I've done 100 of them. I've traveled around the country. In fact, in other countries, we've put on small-scale seminars about marketing with a book and a speech. You can do a Zoominar on your topic, and you promote it through LinkedIn. So I wanted to turn the talking stick over to Devin DeVries to talk about how we've used LinkedIn to get people into our small-scale seminars and our Zoominars. So Devin, take it away.
Hello. Thank you for inviting me to speak on this. As Henry mentioned, for us, the small scale seminar has been a game changer. It's helped us grow our business, and we've worked with our clients to help them use the strategy to grow their businesses. And what we mean when we say a small scale seminar is, probably 5 to 10 people. You want to keep it to a number that you can have interaction with, especially important when you're live in person, but even through virtual, You can find ways to have interactions with the Q&A and chat boxes and polls and things like that. But the idea is that it's a small enough group that you can make real connections with those that attend. And then the other part of it is that these are usually either no cost or very low cost. So the idea is to freely give your time and information and share some of your expertise and be generous with it. And that is going to be attractive to your prospects. Because what we find is the more that you can share kind of general tips and advice, it will bring people in for the specifics of, okay, how do I apply that in my specific situation? So let me tell you a quick story about Michael. Michael Hague is one of our authors. He wrote Storytelling Made Easy, and he is a really interesting guy. You would like him a lot. He is a Hollywood script consultant. So nobody knows storytelling better than Michael. He's the person Will Smith calls when he wants advice on his next project. And so he has been consulting, screenwriters, fiction authors for decades. But when he came to us with his new book, it was for a new audience. So he wanted to teach business professionals how to use those same fiction storytelling techniques in telling stories in their presentations, in their marketing materials. But this was a totally new audience for Michael. So his big question to us was, how do I find these people? How do I get in front of these audiences? And we said, the best thing we can recommend is to put on your own small scale seminar. Host your own event. Now, Michael gave us a little bit of pushback. He was nervous about it. Up to that point, he was always brought into events, or he taught at universities. He never had to fill a room himself. So he was a little nervous about that. We said, not a problem. We have a strategy where you use LinkedIn as an outreach tool, and we'll teach you how to use that. So, okay. So we started planning his event. And for Michael, his topic and his book went hand in hand. So we did Storytelling Made Easy was the topic. We decided to focus on marketing professionals and real estate agents. So people that we felt could use story in persuading their prospects and clients to make purchases. And what we do with LinkedIn is it's a really simple kind of two-step invitation process. But why it works and why I love LinkedIn so much is that all that information that we all put into our profiles is searchable. So, we know we can search by industry, you can search by geographic location, industry, job title, organizations people belong to. So, for instance, for our company, consultants are kind of our target. So Institute of Management Consultants, people in Vistage, those are all target-rich environments for us. And those are things that people write into their profile that you can search by. So that helps with the identifying the who for an event. And so for Michael, the next question was, what is our goal and how many? And like I said, our recommendation is 5 to 10 people. But Michael gave us a little bit of pushback, and he really wanted 24 people in the room. We said, okay, we're going to set kind of 3 numbers. So the survival number, which is, 5. We get 5 people in the room, it's worth your time. Kind of optimistic was in the 10 to 12, and then our stretch goal was the 24 people. And what we do is start with just a really simple invite. And this is the connection invite on LinkedIn. So when you go to connect with somebody, there's that little box that says add a note. So all we do is add 1 sentence to that. And that's, would you be open to an invitation to an event I'm hosting for, who you're hosting for. And then if you're doing it in a location and mention the city name, just so they know. So for Michael, we said, we're hosting an event for marketing professionals in Portland. Because what he did was he was going to Portland for a conference. And so he just added one day on to his trip, got a meeting room for himself, and kind of took advantage of that travel time. And that's where we start. So we knew that we were able to do the who. We started connecting with them through LinkedIn. And it's a really kind of soft knock at the door approach. It's not pushy. If they accept the connection invite, we send them like a 1-paragraph invitation to the event. Tells you, the really important information right away, who's it for and what they'll get out of it. And then you can have a link to your website for more information if they're interested. Again, the idea is to be helpful and offer, useful information, not be pushy, not be salesy. You send one message, keep hitting them over and over again. And the reason I say that, and you've probably started to receive the messages, is LinkedIn is starting to see kind of an uptick in spammy kind of messages. So you do want to make sure that anything you do through LinkedIn is helpful to the other person, and is easy for them to read. So short messages, so you're respectful of their time, things like that. You just want to be cognizant of when you're using LinkedIn for your marketing. And I'm happy to send, we have a white paper that has example messages if you want to kind of see some of the wording we've used. Happy to send that. So that's what we did for Michael. We found, as many people that fit our criteria in the Portland area. And we were able to get 23 people to sign up for his event, which was fantastic. 19 came, which I would say is a better than average attendance rate. That's the other thing to keep in mind when you're doing events, is that there will be a bit of a drop off of people that RSVP and who actually shows up. For our in-person events, I would say it's probably a 20% drop off. For virtual, we're seeing that number as high as 50%. So just keep that in mind. The slide of virtual, though, is that a lot of people would like the recording after. So if you do a virtual event, record it, and you can send it out to the people that weren't able to attend live. So for Michael, the other thing we always recommend when you do an event is to have a next step at the very end. So we made sure he had a form that people could fill out, a little bit of feedback for the event, and then a couple questions, yes, I want to be on your newsletter list. And then here's the key one, an offer of a 30-minute strategy call, no cost. They could ask him any question they wanted about storytelling. They could run a story by him. Whatever they wanted to do in the 30 minutes was the offer. And why we say that is you want to leave a simple next step, a way for them to follow up for you, but again, not in a salesy way. You want to give them simple steps to follow up if they're interested, and keep that kind of generous offering going. And what's interesting is that when we suggested that to Michael the first time, he was unsure about it, because Michael's fear was that if he gave away some of his consulting time and his advice, that nobody would want to hire him for, that's all they would take, and they wouldn't hire him for his full consulting. And so we said, we understand that's not what we see. So give it a shot and see what happens. So for Michael, at the end of his event, he had 18 of the 19 people checked the form and said, yes, I want that strategy call. The 19th person turned out to actually be his sister-in-law. So we actually count that as a 100% success rate. he had one of the strategy calls within a week of the event. They hired him for his full consulting fee, and it covered the cost of that entire event. So all the travel expenses, renting a room, paying for marketing help, all covered with one engagement. And that was just within a week of the event. He still had 17 other strategy calls. Several of those people became clients. And what's interesting is he did a follow-up event a month later, and at that one, they didn't even wait for the strategy call. Somebody hired him in the room before they even left. So that shows you kind of the power of it, of the strategy, because they get to experience you. They see your style. They see what kind of information you can give, and that you're generous with it and you're helpful, and it will attract them to hire you for the specific help. So again, if you're interested in more information, happy to send that white paper. And with that, I'll throw it back over to Henry.
Thank you, Devin. Thank you so much. So we demonstrate everything we teach. This whole time we're together today is a demonstration. So one part of the demonstration on a Zoominar is provide helpful information, really help people, and don't be salesy. Leave breadcrumbs, leave clues on how people can reach you. Tilt your glasses so they don't reflect so much. So in the chat box, there's that you can reach Devin at indiebooksinternational.com. She'll send you the LinkedIn Small Scale Seminar white paper. It'll be helpful. So here's a next step. Also, the strategy call Devin talked about. We're happy to have strategy calls, either Devin or myself, about this strategy, or writing a book, or attracting clients with different strategies. Happy to have that. It'll be a no cost, no selling, no kidding call, because that's what we want you to do too. There's too many people who think we need to manipulate prospects into some funnel and chew them up and some clients drop out. This is just horrible imagery. Your prospects are smart enough to figure out if it's in their best business interest to do business with you. What you need to do is show up as your authentic self. Thanks, Chris. Chris said, preach. I had that. I was speaking in Savannah once, back when we got to speak in front of live people. So it was an audience, and I said something like that, and somebody shouted out, preach! And, threw me off my game for a second, but I figure it's high compliments. Yeah, we don't need to manipulate people and manipulative maneuvers on LinkedIn and in our talk. And I've been to presentations where people like how you create a rush at the end, and how you throw down a gauntlet. There's two doors that leave this room, and one is for winners and one is for losers, and what door are you going to go out of? No, we don't do that. We don't recommend that, because it's not in the best interest of a thought leader, an expert, a professional who will take work on if it interests them and they truly believe they could help that prospect. They help them in general, giving them valuable information, not just in a Zoominar presentation. If anyone is interested in my book, Marketing with a Book, send an email. Evan, you can type in my email address in the chat box. Send that to Henry at indiebooksinternational.com. I will send you a free copy of my book, Marketing with a Book. It's not marketing a book. There's some great books on that. Mine is how to attract high-paying clients with a book and a speech. The book is the #1 marketing tool for a consultant. Speaking is the #1 marketing strategy for a consultant. It's something we call the showcase strategy. You showcase your knowledge, you showcase your help. and you show that you're interested in helping people. Back on the horse ranch, we used to feed the horses carrots, and we'd say, you know, put the carrot in the palm of your hand, hold it there, let the horse come up to it, eat the carrot, make friends with you. We didn't chase horses with carrots running around to give them to them. One of my first books is Client Seduction, and Dr. David Maister of the Harvard Business School was the inspiration for that. I took one page from one of his books, and with his blessing, I've made a career out of it, and I've written 12 books deep on the subject, and I've got more to say. The main point is, clients don't want to be sold. They want to start dancing with you and see if romance develops. The way they start dancing with you is you're offering information on how to solve their pains, their frustrations, their worries, their doubts, fear, uncertainty, doubt, the FUD factor. That's what you're after. So first you need to know your clients. You need to know what they think about at night. They wake up at 4 a.m. and they can't get back to sleep. What are they thinking about? Is that something that you can solve? Well, how do you advise they solve it in general? Now, one of the knocks on me is that, oh, Henry's talking about free consulting. I don't do free consulting. I'm a paid consultant. No, I'm not talking about free consulting. Free consulting is when people come to you, ask you a few questions and say, this is all very interesting. Can you give me a detailed proposal on how you would handle this? Now, let me ask you 17 questions on that. And you write it down. You know, you go, oh, we got a live one. You go to FedEx, Kinko's, and you put together this big binder and you give it to them. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about having conversations with people, being forthright with answers to their questions verbally during the strategy call. You're paid to do research and put things down in writing for them about their specifics. So that's what we're talking about. I want to go back to screen share again. You can tell we paid a lot of money for these graphics. Okay, oh, sarcasm. We talked about posting 2 chapters on a LinkedIn page, hosting a Zoominar on the topic. We haven't talked about using LinkedIn to fill the Zoominar. Now, record the Zoominar. Record the Zoominar and share it on YouTube. We're really working hard right now to up our YouTube game. We were surprised to find that as many people were searching on YouTube for how-to information as Google. In other words, people rather see a video about something than read about it. I still say you need to be an author. An author, it used to be like getting a PhD. I think it's a lot less now because it's so easy to get published because you don't have to go through a traditional publisher like I did with the Warren Buffett book. That was McGraw-Hill. And I've been published by other traditional publishers. I've also been published by indie publishers, independent publishers who work like an indie record label or an indie film at Sundance. The creator retains control of the intellectual property. When you sell a book to a McGraw-Hill or a Prentice Hall, you're also selling your intellectual property. They're paying you a royalty, typically of 15% of the profits, and they're keeping 85% of the profits for your intellectual property. And the other dirty little secret of publishing is the author does most of the work on marketing. So many people are surprised when they get published by a big publisher and find out they do squat on promoting the book. So there are some reasons to be there, but as you can tell, I formed an independent publishing company, one of about 70,000 in the United States. We have an association and we have codes of ethics and all these things. You don't want to use the S word, which I call self-publishing. There's a stigma to saying your book is self-publishing. At the very least, you should independently publish your book and position it as independently published. You can launch a national tips news release on your area of expertise. This can also be done in the first 30 days. There's a service that we know for $350, they will release your up to 800-word news release nationally. That's a discount. They're actually using PR Newswire that can cost $800, but they can get it for a discount for you for $350. And you'll get 100 news outlets that publish your advice, and that helps with your Google hits. I often say, if you want to hide a dead body, the best place to hide it is on the second page of a Google search. So as an author, you actually want multiple pages about you, your topic, your expertise, your name on Google. A news release can help do that. You can also merchandise it, because you can say, if Yahoo Finance picked up that you were quoted in Yahoo Finance or Forbes.com, or you can say you were quoted in USA Today. We just had an author last week that happened as a result of this. So you can merchandise that. All good things to do. We're encouraging our authors to apply to do a TED Talk. And I know we're in pandemic right now and lockdown and social distancing. Like other venues, a lot of the TED Talk, the TED organizations that put on the talk are going virtual. And you're going to audition for that virtually. So I encourage you to do it. I know a coach, his name is Des Thornton, who's been involved there, and I've sent some of my authors to Des, and he's coached them, and they've got a TED Talk coming up. And it's not that it's going to be some magical client generating speech. It's not. I haven't found anything where people are going, must talk to this person because I saw their TED Talk. No, it's not that. It's credibility. It's another thing when people are considering you as a speaker, you can say, oh, well, let me give you a link to my TED Talk. It says you went through a process. You got approved. You got auditioned. You got on. Just don't let anybody do that. But here's a secret. You can do a TED Talk without going on TED. You just wouldn't call it a TED Talk, but you can do a 12 to 15-minute talk on your expertise. You can do it on Zoom. You can share it on YouTube. You can promote it. It's just something that you build to. It might be something that you show the committee for the TED Talks to look at something of you in action speaking. And you want to pay attention to your lighting and your sound and your camera and all those things. Don't do a cruddy TED Talk Zoom video. Pay some attention to it. We're in this new game of virtual. Many speeches that I used to get paid to deliver by traveling places, I've been paid to do them on Zoom this year. I've helped put on a national convention for an association. They're getting more attendees on Zoom. They're getting more sponsors on Zoom. They're getting a higher level of speaker on Zoom because it's easier and less cost for everybody. So there's some advantages to this stuff. And I have to tell you, I know the pandemic's been rough. I tested positive for cabin fever. So it hasn't been easy for me, probably not for you. It's gonna be around for some more time. And to attract clients, we need to do these things that work. And let me tell you the story of Penny Reed. So Penny Reed was staring at a stack of unpaid bills on her kitchen table. The year is 2015. The place, Memphis, Tennessee. She shares a little 800 square foot apartment with her teenage daughter. was a far cry from the 4,000 square foot home Penny shared with her ex-husband, who was also her employer, who gave her all her client work. So no house, no employer, no client work, and a lot of bills. Penny's a special woman. I hope you get to meet her one day. Penny said, if you're going to dream, dream big. In 2 years, I'll be making $200,000 as a speaker, author, and consultant. Shortly after that moment, we met. We came up with the idea for her book. And he said, oh, so the plan is I publish the book, then I get speaking engagements, then I get clients. And I said, oh no. The plan is you start talking today about your upcoming book. And I want you to make one phone call a day. And he said, who am I going to call? I said, well, who's your audience? Dentists. I said, well, you're going to call people who book speakers to talk to dentists and dentists who might hire a consultant. You're going to ask them if they're open to a conversation about booking you as a speaker or a conversation about booking you as a consultant around the topic of your upcoming book. The title I helped her come up with, it's not very sexy. It's Growing Your Dental Business. It's what they wanted. It's what Penny knew about. She was able to write that book, publish articles, get speaking engagements. 2 years later, she's looking at her computer screen for her profit and loss statement, and she pushes the print button, pulls out the sheet, profit and loss, gross profit, $200,000. $100,000 from speaking, $100,000 from consulting. Now, that's 2 years. This thing was about 30 days. 2-year journey starts with the first 30 days. And you commit to it and you start it. And you start talking to people. Penny interviewed people for her book, that formed relationships. The relationships resulted in speaking engagement invitations. It's a virtuous cycle, as they say. These things reinforce themselves. A catchphrase we use is, magic is in the mix. Magic is in the mix. So if I was going to leave one piece of advice with you today, it would be that. Magic is in the mix. Another catchphrase, I'm very interested in catchphrases now. I want authors and speakers to come up with their catchphrases. Simon Sinek, great Simon Sinek, his catchphrase, start with why, title of one of his books. Eaters eat last, title of one of his books. People like catchphrases. It helps them remember things. One of mine is, a book is the #1 marketing tool. Speaking is the #1 marketing strategy. Another catchphrase, publishing a book is the starting line, not the finish line. I might need to adjust that because I think the starting line is what I shared on the screen. It's these first 30 days toward expertise. And we're not waiting for everything to happen 2 years from now. It's a runway. It's a journey. It's a quest you're on, the quest to be recognized as an expert, to have impact and influence in an area. And that's what I wish for all of you. I'm just going to check the chat box to see if we have anything to talk about. Thanks, Chris, for the encouragement. And thanks, Chris Hodges. I guess I didn't hear you. Good to see your writing. Thanks, Brad. If there's any question anybody had, now's the time to put it in the chat. Otherwise, I'll be wrapping this up and wishing you well.
Great to see you both and your guests.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. So here's my other thing. I write for Forbes.com. I need experts. I need experts on business development, marketing, publicity, speaking, or your area and how you've used it. One person had a strategy to be a disruptor, and wrote about how they became a disruptor in their industry using some of these strategies. So here's an offer. If you have an idea for a Forbes.com column, send the idea to, just send me an email that says Forbes, the subject line. I'll know, and I'll reply to that with instructions on how to pitch an idea to me for Forbes and what I'm looking for and what the process would be. Now, I work months in advance. I can't promise instant karma here that we're going to have a conversation and you'll have an article next week or even in the next 30 days. Many of the articles came from people I've met here on Zoom. It's a great networking tool for me. So there's a legitimate offer. One more look at the chat. Just another attaboy, we'll take those. Thank you, Devin, for your presentation today. Thanks everybody for attending. And if we can be of help, drop us a line. If we can do you a favor, we'd be happy to do that. Thanks for your attention today.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.